We're just going to invite a couple more guys to join us up here. We're going to expand the conversation into water and some best practices. So if Bill, if you would introduce.
So we're going to be joined by Riggs Eckelberry of OriginOil Inc. and David Trickett of the Jefferson Circle. Please come up and join the conversation to expand it.
Riggs Eckelberry has a company called OriginOil, and they've come up with a very unique technology that basically takes the 5 million gallons per well that we drill. And I'm going to say that we have about 100,000 wells in the state of Colorado. I'm probably off a little bit, but pretty close. And a lot of them have been drilled in the last 8 or 10 years, some of them right over here in Rifle, Colorado, near where we live. And we use about 5 million gallons, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, per well. And then apparently that water comes back out, and it's full of heavy metals and all kinds of stuff. And it gets carted off at about $8 a barrel. Is that right?
It varies by region, but it's expensive.
Okay. So your technology basically takes that water, removes those metals, et cetera, and then they reuse it. Is that right?
Right. So there's, of course, a range of options. Sometimes in Colorado, it's got to be returned to fully potable, or it can be cleaned up to the level that it can be reused in the next frac job, for example. And so theoretically, especially if you're getting water coming out of the formation, you can actually make that well independent of outside water supplies, because, as you know, there's often plentiful water that comes out of the aquifers as well. Now, I have a presentation I thought I would make to.
When you say out of the aquifer,
out of formation. Thank you.
Well, on that issue of 5 million gallons per well in a water-constrained West, where drought is upon us in California, et cetera, it seems like a pretty good idea to try to conserve as much water as we can.
when you were talking about conserving water, you know, Karshner just said, Andy did, was talking about how much of our energy that we lose. And when you look around, pardon me for interrupting you, but I mean, it's a good idea to conserve everything, all resources. I mean, that shouldn't be axiomatic.
Well, the reason I bring it up, and I think that David can speak to this, is there's, I think, a lot of friction between the parties around this fracking issue. And people tend to dig in on their various positions and so forth. And it's our position that if the oil industry can address this proactively, there's going to actually be perhaps a lowering of the temperature and the ability to work together. As you may know, the Hoover Dam has been dropping down. This is just in 1 year. Now, here's what it looks like. That's in June 16, 2013, and this is just 1 year later.
Are you fracking out of that?
Oh, no, this is just to show where the Colorado Watershed's going.
Okay.
So thank God we're not fracking out of Lake Mead. But so what we have here is a 13-month drop, and of course it's from a low level already. So there's clearly troubles with the Colorado Watershed, and the Ogallala, as you know, Boone, is threatened as well because there's the big drought of 2012, and it has not been alleviated. We have parts of the Ogallala that are getting quite low, and it is not recharging fast enough. So groundwater is an issue in the West, but also in the Midwest. Now, here's the interesting slide by Ceres, where they show that so many of our fracking operations are in stressed environments. A stressed environment is one that already has 80% of the water being used for other uses, so it makes for competition. So fracking is competing in these various areas with other users, and many of these areas, like the gray ones, are arid to start with. We also know that overall fracking use is low. As a percentile, here's Colorado, and it shows that hydraulic fracturing is 0.08% of total use, agriculture being the biggest at 85%. Now, the issue...
Does that take in metropolitan?
It's Colorado overall, yes, sir. Here's the issue, and we see this in Texas. Local stress can be very high. We have Karnes, for example, 213% proportion of fracturing used to domestic. We have in Erie County, small population, of course, but they're at almost 3,000%. So this can create local stresses, and why is this important? Well, there's people live there, and they get concerned Texas is pro-fracking, of course, but I think we have to be mindful of the stresses on the population. And here's another one, where populations are growing in the arid regions. All these circled areas are major growth areas for population in the very same areas.
And you know why they're growing?
Well, they're growing because it's a great climate, for starters.
It's growing because the oil and gas in those areas are so active and employing so many people.
That's a very good point.
You've been to Midland, Texas lately. You wouldn't believe it if you hadn't been there in 10 years.
Well, we have an office in Houston, and I agree that Texas is doing very well. But, for example, California, which has not yet had a fracking boom, is growing. The point is, fracking is a boom, but so is, the weather in Florida, the weather in California. These people are migrating to nice places.
That's right.
Okay, now, this is the point. If you have a growing population and stressed aquifers, fracking operators are under what I call a perfect storm, right? It's a PR situation that they have to recognize. And our experience at OriginOil has been that operators would just rather it just go away. So it's not going to. I think we need to be proactive. All right, so the good news is recycling with a whole new generation of technologies like ours is becoming chemical-free and much more efficient. We can save on truck trips. There's excess water that can be piped to farmers. It's happening in the Imperial Valley right now, where Chevron is piping water into that's not regulated Colorado water. And finally, there's more and more waterless fracking, which can do about a third of the job. And there's savings available. This is a spreadsheet which you can get from our company, which, depending on the scenario, you can save a lot of money on your water if you recycle. That's a win-win. Conclusion is, of course, is that we can dramatically mitigate the perceived impact of fracking on stressed water supplies with these proactive measures, and that's my point.
Okay, what's the name of your company? That we
OriginOil.
Okay, what's the symbol?
OOIL. Thank you.
What's it selling for?
Oh, we're a microcap. We're a microcap, and we're a technology company, so we're freely licensing our technology to all comers. We're kind of like Android versus iOS. You don't have to buy the platform. You can have the technology and pay for it on the back end.